Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. It is a quite nice winter day today. There's no frost and nothing today. The soil is nice. You can really work your way into the soil. And guess what I did already? I had a couple more tulips. So I was planting more tulips and then more tulips on the way even. So I'm really getting in there like as late as possible. But this year I kind of feel like, can you have enough tulips? No, you absolutely can't. And I'm really trying to get a beautiful tulip and spring display next year. But today's video is not about tulips or bulbs or anything. What I want to do is I want to take you with me into the kitchen garden, into the upper kitchen garden, because there are still two projects that I can do there, and it's just the perfect time of the year to do it now. I'm really excited to share with you what I'm doing there. One quick thing I need to say, our neighbors have a car workshop and this is just next to the kitchen garden and they are working there at the moment. So it might be a little bit noisy in the background. So really my apologies for that. I hope it's not going to ruin the entire audio, but bear with me. It is what it is. That's the situation. Oh, look, Alfie's already with me. She's just like exploring the garden. She found an apple even. I don't know where she found that apple. It must have been frozen for a couple of days and it just came back to like being edible again, but she enjoyed it. So she had a second breakfast just a second ago. But let's go to the kitchen garden now. So this is the upper kitchen garden, and for those of you who haven't seen a lot of my videos or don't follow me, I just quickly want to give you a heads up on where I'm gardening, how it works here. So I am gardening in a zone 7B outside the city of Gdansk in Poland, very close to the Baltic Sea. On one side there is a river, so we are on top of a dike here. On the other side is farmland, and the Baltic Sea is pretty much in my back, which means there's always a lot of moisture in the air coming from the river, a lot of mist coming from the Baltic Sea, even from the farmland. So when it comes to my watering, nothing is on irrigation. I hardly ever water anything. It's kind of like plants, you better develop some deep roots and make it happen. And so far I'm really successful with that. So how the kitchen garden works is like on that side here, there is our garage and an area where we store our wood for the fireplace. And then there's a narrow strip here with some fruiting shrubs. So there's like 3 black currants and 1 quince. And there is a wisteria growing on a trellis here next to the garage. It flowers blue, absolutely beautiful. And comes May, June, when it comes to flower, it fills the entire area with the most glorious scent you can possibly imagine. So next year, May, June, I'm really going to show you how it looks because it really has these long flowers really trailing down. Love the wisteria so, so much. Always filled with bumblebees. Then on this side here, this is where most of the produce actually comes from the upper kitchen garden. So you can tell it has a formal edge to it. So it's completely framed with boxwoods and they are looking fairly well still. So there's no signs of like caterpillar damage or boxwood blight or anything. So I'm really happy about that situation. And then you can tell I'm standing on the path. So there's just a straight path really just going through the kitchen garden. And on one side there is like a little wicker fence that I built from cuttings from the pear tree. So you might see that here is a big patch of greenery going on and it's no weeds. And in one of my previous videos, I shared with you how I do a green fertilizer and how it works is I came in with a clover. So this is kind of like a special clover that improves the soil structure. So what I did, just sprinkled a thin layer of the seeds on top of it and then I did nothing. I was just waiting, let it grow, but now it's so cold, it's not growing or doing anything anymore. And even though we had a couple of frosty nights already, it's still looking good and healthy though. But in the next coming days or weeks, we're really going to have a lot of cold nights and days. So the soil will freeze over completely and then I can't work it in anymore. So it's today or never basically. So today's the day when I really need to get in here with my garden fork and really dig it under. So what you want to do is make sure that all the green stuff really is mixed with the soil so it can break down and kind of make nice compost and enrich the soil for the next growing season to come. You might also see that there is some brown stuff on here. So there's still a couple of leaves in here and those are coming from the walnut trees. And walnut leaves are fairly big and they break down very slowly. So I make compost out of it and it's beautiful compost once it happens. But if I dig it under, they will absolutely not break down until next spring to come. If it was like, I don't know, birch leaves or something, I would just dig it in, but not the walnut leaves. So what I need to do now is come in and just try and collect as many of those leaves as I possibly can. And then after I did that, I'm going to give another additional thin layer of another fertilizer to it, but I'm going to talk you through in a moment. Next thing I need to do is, if you just follow me here a little bit to the back of the kitchen garden, you see still some stems with some greenery on top of it. So these are our raspberries, and they are all autumn fruiting raspberries. And when it comes to raspberries, there are two different kinds. There are the summer fruiting ones and the autumn fruiting ones. I only grow the autumn fruiting ones here, which means I am going to prune them back completely. But what I'm going to do in a second, also talk you through how the pruning routine works on both different kind of varieties of raspberries. So what I want to do now is flip the phone, quickly show the area, and then just talk you through what I'm going to do. So let us just walk into the kitchen garden. You can tell it's framed really on both sides with boxwoods, and then this is how we walk in here. And if I just swing to the left, you get to see the big patch of greenery that is going on. So if I just gently go down with you, there you see how the clover is looking. So there was really good germination going on. It's really like a thin carpet, and I'm really happy with how it's looking. A lot of leaves in here, so I really need to get in here and collect the leaves. And there are a couple of weeds growing in here. I tried to find one. Oh, there's one just here at the front actually. So you see, this is not what I want to have, so I need to come in and try to get out some of those weeds. And I want to show you something else. There's a sneaky raspberry growing in here that I kind of like ignored for the longest time. And then I saw today that there are fruits on there. And I was like, oh, raspberries looking nice actually, and I tried them. I can tell you they tasted terrible. So winter raspberries definitely not a trend to come. I'm really going to dig that one out and cut them back, but they were not tasty in the slightest. But yeah, this is how the raspberries are looking. So we've got quite a couple of those. And actually the stems are really nice because they have this really beautiful kind of like dark red color. So for winter interest, it would be beautiful to leave them there, but that is not how it works, unfortunately. So I really need to get in there and cut them back. But that is going to be part 2 of the project. So what I will focus on first is this area here and get my hands in there. I think you could see fairly well what I was doing here basically. So I really started off with collecting the leaves also from the path here, so that Alfie has the opportunity to walk on the path nicely again as well. And you get to see, actually there's a stone framing in there that was kind of like hidden underneath all of the leaves and everything. So yeah, that was the first thing, just get rid of all the leaves, and then I came in with my garden fork and just dug it over basically. And then how I done it, I got in there and tipped the entire kind of like turf over so that all the greenery is now under the soil and all the roots are coming upwards. So that when the temperatures are rising again, everything can break down fairly well. Nothing is going to root in anymore. Anyways, when the first real harsh frost is going to come, all of the clover that is lying on the surface now is going to die back anyways. But I can tell you the lovely thing about the green fertilizer is like, not only when it breaks down, it's going to do goodness to the soil, but also like the roots developed really well in there, and they also loften up the soil structure. So this is also a reason on why you do this green fertilizing. But now I'm gonna take you with me here to the back, and we're gonna start with tackling the lovely raspberries. So one last quick thing before I start talking about the raspberries. When I was digging over this area, maybe you saw, I found some potatoes still. And it's always like that whenever I'm doing it, whenever I plant potatoes and I dig over an area, I always find some. I always forget them in there. And this is always how it works. I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some in the next year. I see some potatoes poking through. There's a definitely a chance that this is going to happen. And this is also one of the lovely things when you're growing your own fruit and veg in the garden. There are always those areas, at least for me, where I forget about something. Like the other day, I found one bean that I completely forgot about, and there were still some beans on there, and they were edible. They tasted really nice. So that was a lovely little thing about like when you grow your own fruit and veg in the garden. So let's start with the raspberries. As I said, there are two different kind of raspberries. There are the autumn fruiting ones and the summer fruiting ones. So here we only grow the autumn fruiting ones, which produce their fruit kind of like in late August, September, maybe even into October. I mean, you could tell like even into late winter, apparently, when you forget about them, you still find fruit there, but then they're not really edible anymore because they don't taste well. So I wait very long with the pruning, and there is a good reason for that, because you can tell that the stems are quite bare at this point. There's just a little bit of leaves left here on the top basically, but even those leaves start to yellow off now and they start falling down. And all the leaves that are covering this area here, I'm going to leave them because they are like a natural mulch and protection for those raspberries in a cold, frosty winter day. So here, I'm just going to leave it exactly as it is. But I'm cutting back now because I want to make sure that all the leaves have the opportunity to take up all the sunlight that they still get and really store all the goodness down into the roots, because those raspberries here, they fruit on new growth next year. So this is why I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to store as much energy into the root system as they can, so that the root system can produce a lot of good, strong, vital growth for next year to come. So what I do now is I come in with my secateurs and then I really cut back all the way to the ground basically. So really get in there and just snip it off so you don't really see a lot sticking out of the ground. When you cut back any kind of wood or like shrubs or anything like this here basically, what you want to make sure is that you never cut it straight. Always cut it on an angle, kind of like a 45-degree angle. And the reason for that is you want to make sure that when there's rain or any moisture in the air, that moisture cannot sit on top of your cutting. So when you cut back straight and after a rain, a single raindrop can sit idle on top of that cutting area. And what happens is it can start to rot, mold can come in, fungi problem. And those are the things that you absolutely do not want to have. So when you cut it on an angle, what happens is that any kind of moisture can naturally just like run down and you will not have a problem like that. So this is all I'm going to do with our autumn fruiting raspberries now. Really cut everything back basically, and then off it goes onto the compost heap. Then the other category of raspberries you have are the summer fruiting ones. And I have an eye on the yellow ones. I think I might grow for next year to come because I'm really excited about those. But you prune those different because there you have like new wood and old growth basically. So the old growth is where the summer fruiting ones are producing their berries, and you can cut back those kind of stems. But those stems that were not fruiting in this year, you need to leave, because those are the stems that will produce fruit for the next year to come. So you always kind of like strip back pretty much half of it, I would say, because those are the ones where you see, oh, they were producing the fruit and they will not fruit again, so they can come out. And then those that were not fruiting this year, you need to leave them, because if you strip back everything, what happens is next year you won't have a single fruit. Because here, the autumn fruiting ones, they produce only on new growth, so I can strip back everything basically. So this is very easy with the autumn fruiting raspberries. After I've done that, there's just one last thing I'm going to do to the area that I dug over. I'm going to apply one last sprinkle of fertilizer, let's put it that way. But before I do that and talk you through, I'm just going to work my way through here and cut back everything. So that was it for the raspberries, and that literally took 2 minutes out of me to cut them back. And when it comes to raspberries, trust me, there's nothing easier than growing your own raspberries in your garden, because all I do in springtime is I just give them like a liquid fertilizer, and between then and now I don't do anything. I just come in and just harvest them, and it's so lovely to just come in here in the morning and pick your own raspberries for your breakfast, and they taste so much better than anything that you could possibly buy in a supermarket. So definitely worth it. And if you're not growing any raspberry, just give it a thought. Maybe you really want to try it, and if you just do 2 plants, I guarantee they make you very happy. But that was it with the raspberries, and now I want to focus one last time on this area here where I was already working my way through. So what I do now is I'm going to apply a very thin layer of fertilizer. Well knowing that we're expecting cold temperatures and nothing is going to happen anymore now. But if I prepare it now, what happens is that when the temperatures are rising again, there is something in here, and the microorganisms of the soil have something to feed on, and they can do the goodness basically. So this is why I start doing it already now, and then I come in again in spring for a second time. What I do is obviously my very famous bone chips, which are actually made of horn. I use those that are made of horn. I am going to give you a close look in a second how they're looking. Kind of flaky, dry, which means you can store them really well in your garden shed. Nothing really happens to them. They can't really go over or anything. This is also a reason why I really love to work with them. And what you do is just you come in there and just sprinkle them very lightly over. And I'm going to do it in a second, and over the entire area, come in with my rake and just rake it all over so it's really like in the ground. And what happens basically, and this is just like what I really love to work with them, is that they kind of work as a long-term fertilizer. Because of the flaky texture, microorganisms come in, start working on them, break them down, but there is a process that really takes a longer period of time, and they break it down into nitrogen. And especially for a veg garden, nitrogen is a really good thing and something that you want to have in there. For example, if you're growing kale, cabbage, I don't know, courgettes, pumpkins, squashes, all those kind of vegetables really benefit a lot from that. So everything, when you think about those plants, all of those veggies that produce big leaves, they really need nitrogen in the soil. So this is why it's really good to apply this into your veg garden. Any kind of vegetable will definitely benefit from it. But if you're growing any kind of vegetables that produce these big kind of leaves, nitrogen is definitely key for those, because they need a lot of like goodness from the soil to feed on. So this is all I'm going to do now. Apply the thin layer, rake it over, and then next spring comes, I'm going to do the exact same thing again, and then I know that the entire soil of the veg garden is prepared fairly well. Because what I do when I grow vegetables is I don't really feed the plants in general, I feed the soil and prepare the soil, because this is where the plants are actually feeding from. Want to see a little piglet? Yes. Oh. Somebody was digging in the soil, obviously. But all right, that is what it is. There's more soil now to dig in. So if I just show you, this is how everything is looking now. And to be fair, I think it looked a lot nicer before I got in here, but this is a pretty sight for me. I mean, it's nice and tidy now and well prepared for next year to come. So that is a positive thing. So I worked in all of the organic fertilizer, really happy about that. And it can just start to break down now. Well, not now, but when the temperatures are rising again. And you can just see the distinct line of where the raspberries start, because this is where the leaves are. And I don't pick them up because they are just this amazing protection for winter. And yeah, they were all looking good. I was inspecting them like by the base, really healthy, strong looking plants. And you still get to see some of the pots that I potted up here for autumn together with you guys. most of the things are kind of starting to fade out now a little bit, but the euchera still looks amazing. And this is why eucheras are so amazing in any kind of pot arrangement, because of the foliage color and the accent that they give. Just glorious. Oh, there's some pots in the back, they're not looking so nice. I just wanted to show you basically this here at the end of the veg garden. This is a cherry laurel. And I know it doesn't look amazing probably, but earlier this year it looked terrible, because what happened is we had such a cold winter, freezing temperatures with clear blue skies, and it killed all of the leaves. So everything browned off, it dropped all of its leaves, but it had fresh buds coming. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave it, not going to cut it back. And luckily I didn't, because it really bounced back so beautifully. And I know next year that with more growth to come, it's really going to be back to bushy and nice, and a good protection actually, because this is also one of the good advantages of why you might want to have like hedges around your kitchen garden, because you create a little bit of a microclimate in here. I can tell you that some of the tender plants I plant out really early in here, like salad crops and stuff, and they are thriving really beautiful and nice in here because frost doesn't kick in so hard because of the microclimate that I create by the hedges. You might think that was it for today's video, but no, I've got a little bonus for you, because I will be planting something. And now you might think, boy has gone completely crazy. We're in the middle of winter. How can you possibly think he can plant something? But the ground isn't frozen. Everything is still like nice and lofty soil. And I got 2 plants sitting in pots here. And I really want to plant them out, because what happened is, like, I really love Vibirnum. This is Vibirnum Dawn, absolute beautiful, and I love to grow because of its scent. It has an amazing fragrance, and it comes in winter. And my idea was last year that I put 2 of those in pots and put them next to the main entrance door, and then they're gonna fill me with joy and pleasure whenever I come home and I have a scent, because they were full of buds when I bought them. To be fair, they were really cheap. They were not even 10 euros like for one of those. So I potted them up, and at least they made it in their pots. They thrived kind of all right. Not amazing, but kind of all right. But they were not really flowering. Like, they had a lot of buds and none of them really came to flower. And I really think it was just like not the right plant for the right pot, basically. Maybe I did something wrong. If you're growing Viburnum in a pot and it works out brilliantly, please tell me what you're doing. Please tell me what the magic trick is. For me, I think like it's better if I just like plant them out in the landscape and then I just do all the goodness there. But what I can tell you is, like, I checked already the root system and that is looking fairly good, because I can just lift it and you can tell this is the beautiful sight what you want to see if you lift something out of a pot. And the roots are nice and fibrous, they have a good color, it's not pot bound, so the roots are not like growing around like crazy, but you can just lift it out and the soil is not going to crumble apart, basically. So all the roots can hold it all together really nicely. So that is a good thing. So I know that they actually rooted in very well, they are happy, they produce buds even though. They have a few buds for flowering. So I think if I put them out, they'd be just like happy campers here. And of course they will go to the back of a slope, because I think then I have like I really want to have this tapestry of different interesting things going on here, basically. And they add winter interest. So before I plant them, I just want to give you just a few side facts about them. Because I remember I already showed you the one that I'm growing like at the main entrance, like next to the main entrance. And one of my like winter cleanup videos, I think that is when it happened. But Viburnum Dawn grows to a height in between like 2.5 to 3 meters, and it can grow in between like 2 meters in width, basically. So it's a good size for a shrub. It's not like too big, too overpowering. It's not one of those shrubs that can grow up to like, I don't know, 6-7 meters. So I think 2.5 to 3 meters is still something. You can always find a good corner for that somewhere in your garden. When it comes to the growing habit, as the shrub matures, the branches start to like cascade. Cascade is a wrong word for that. Cascading kind of sounds like you're in the lobby of like, I don't know, the Grand Plaza in Manhattan or something. They are like, no, arching. They are kind of like, they start arching down, basically. So this is like the growing habit as a shrub matures. I've seen it planted out in the landscape and it looks really nice. It's like what a lot of the shrubs are doing, and this does it as well. It flowers in winter, which is absolutely beautiful, and it has single flowers, so they're completely open and they're very, very heavily fragrant. So it is actually a good idea to really plant it close to your main entrance area, because whenever you come back home in the grim winter days, this shrub fills the entire area with this absolute perfect perfume, and it is just impeccable, I'm telling you. I love this a lot. Like jasmine and viburnum are two of my absolute favorite scents when it comes to any kind of garden shrub there possibly is. They are not fuzzy in the slightest when it comes to soil conditions. So this is again another big bonus. They thrive even on sandy soil. So I don't even need to improve a lot of the area here. I'm still going to put like a little bit of fresh garden soil in there and just put a little bit of bone chips in there just to for the nitrogen level basically. But besides, they are not really fuzzy or anything, which is beautiful. They want to sit somewhere in a sunny or partly shade area, which is also quite nice because I can also just like get a little bit to the corner here where it's partly shaded, and I think this is going to be fine. So I can like spread them apart so there's like one here and one further down the other side basically. Yeah, I think these are kind of like the most important facts that I can give you about the viburnum. So all I'm going to do now is just like lift them over my dead hedge, hooray, onto the other side of the slope, and then just do a quick dig in, because as it is at this time of the year, I'm really running out of daylight again. You might see it starts getting a little gloomy already. So I think we're now at 2:30, which means I probably have like max another 45 minutes to hour of daylight, and then I can go back to hibernation basically. So before I do that, I want to make sure that I get these into the ground. Both shrubs are planted and I'm really happy about it. I just want to show you how things are looking. Even though you might not be able to see a lot because everything looks pretty much the same, kind of like shades of brown, but this is where the first one is. So whenever you see a patch of mulch on the ground, this is where you know, oh, something beautiful must have been planted there. So yeah, this is where the first one went. That hardly had a root system at all, to be honest. I was not a happy camper, but let's see. Really improved the soil a lot for that one. So you can tell this is really by the end of a property, literally, like the terraces and here on the right. And there is one of those big trees that starts falling down bit by bit now. Oh, lovely. But this is going to grow in a semi-shade condition. So I even get to see how they thrive in different areas. So this one is a little more in a shaded area. And if I continue walking, there you see the next patch of mulch actually. So this is where I planted the cornus, the variety Nicole, together with you in one of my previous videos. I just quickly checked and the branch is looking good, full of nice buds. So I can't wait for it for next year. I'm so excited already. And then here, this is where I planted the second viburnum. So mulched in really well, and this is the one that looked a lot better. So it really had a good root system, and it also has quite a lot of buds on it. If I go a little closer, maybe you get to see them at least a little bit. So whatever kind of like pinkish dots you see, this is where the buds are forming, and they will flower for sure. I'm really sure that here, once they're now in the ground, they'll be happier here. And the beauty of it is that when I'm sitting up there on my bench, I've got to have a prime view on everything that is happening down here. So this I'm really determined on like transforming the area and really have this tapestry of all different kind of shrubs and beauty going on here. And I can't wait to share whatever I come up with you guys and do all of the planting together with you. That is it for today's video, and I think moving forward that this is how my future winter videos are pretty much going to work with you guys, because I go out here in the garden with an idea of what I want to do and accomplish, and then I check the time and I'm like, ooh, I still have 1.5 hours left of daytime. What am I going to do? Because in summer, it's like the day kind of like never ends, and you kind of feel like, oh, well, if I don't do it today, maybe tomorrow, but now you're kind of like, no, time is ticking. You really want to get cracking and do things. So I just thought like, yes, I still have the 2 pots sitting here with the Vibirnum, and it's a perfect day to get them into the ground because it's mild, still mild. I mean, I know what's going to happen in a couple of days. The ground isn't frozen over, so just perfect. And they'll be so much happier in the ground too when I overwinter them in the pots. And on top of it, I have 2 empty pots now, which means I might do a little potting video or something, or just come up with, I don't know, a nice idea on what I can do with those. Maybe just like a nice winter display, put something in there I need to see, and they're even matching. This is even better. 2 similar pots, great. I'm going to call it a day now because it still looks quite nice and light on the screen, surprisingly. But trust me, standing out here, it's really gloomy and I still need to clean up everything. So I've got my stuff scattered everywhere around the entire garden. So what I need to do now is just really pack everything, put it back in the garden shed, call it a day. And then all I can say is like, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you had fun with me in the garden. I always enjoy sharing these moments with you, and I would really love to welcome you in one of my future videos to come. Until then, have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.